Good news from Oulton Park for round 2 of the British GT Championship. The sun is doing its level best to break through. The rain has stopped. The road is still wet, but it is getting a little bit drier. And we have a grid based on the qualifying time set in a separate session, Q2. So not a grid based on a race result, but a standalone qualifying session, gridding up, ready to go racing within the next quarter of an hour. Track temperature now up to 14.3 degrees. So it's certainly improved from the morning race where we were somewhat blighted with full course yellows because of people going off into the gravel. This is the Oulton Park International Circuit, 2.692 miles long. You've got the right-hander of Old Hall before you drop downhill through Cascades, along Lakeside Straight, the banked right of Shell towards the Britain's Chicane, over the brow at Hilltop, down towards Hislops and the fast Knickerbrook corner, up the hill again, up Clay Hill towards the double apex right of Druids and Lodge corner at the end of the lap. You turn right, you drop down, up Deer Leap the other side, and that is one lap of a challenging circuit. Talking challenging, so it was in the earlier race. On a very wet road, we had a safety car start, and the race was led away by Rob Collard, chased by Ian Loggy and GT newcomer Alex Martin in third place. One or two drivers, though, early on fell foul of the conditions. Hugo Cook and Sasha Kakad's Audi, for example, having a spin at Old Hall Corner, and then more dramas, like Mark Smith going off the road, coming down towards Hislops, and he wasn't the only one, because also up the escape road went Carl Cavers, but he was in further strife, tagged into a spin at Lodge Corner, Richard Neary being delayed in all of that as well, but they both battled on. While all that was going on, we had cars off the road necessitating a full course yellow that went through the pit window. Rob Collard gave way to son Ricky in number 63 Lamborghini, the Barwell Motorsport run car, and he was away and gone, building up a lead with back markers between him and the second place Mercedes of Phil Keane and Ian Loggy, and Phil Keane had to wait until he got to the timing line and a green flag before he could overtake them. Rick and Rob Collard won race 1, with GT4 honours going to Mikey Porter and Jamie Day. Ricky Collard bringing home number 63 Lamborghini over the line, victorious in race 1 in GT3. Jamie Day and Mikey Porter for the Forzetti Motorsport team coming home victorious in GT4 at the end of a rather damp race. Well, the road is getting drier. No problem. That's the good news, and the team's all good to go, making their way round onto the grid ready for the rolling start. David Addison trackside, Joe Osborne is down on the grid. So too is Bryn Lucas, and I think now, Bryn, the team's a little bit happier with these blue skies overhead.
Yeah, I think so. And also we've got a very, very special guest come. The Easter Bunny has arrived on the grid as well. So we've got special VIP guests and a lot of much happier teams. And that, as you say, is because there's blue sky above. Not sure what that's going to do to the track, but we'll come to that later, I am sure. Now, Sandy Mitchell is starting in a position that Sandy Mitchell likes to start, and that is in pole. And if you look ahead of us, Sandy, well, it's exactly where you want to be. And for you guys, with a championship push, it's Oulton Park last year that really undid your championship. So for you to start so well this season must be a big tick.
Yeah, the last couple of years, you know, we've had a tricky start to the year, and it's tough to play catch up after that. You know, the pressure's kind of on you to keep delivering, whereas yeah, this year, great first race for the team and for the sister car as well. But yeah, perfect way to start this one on pole. We've got a 5-second penalty, so I'm hoping it stays green and we can stretch our legs a little bit here with the McLaren alongside and hopefully build a gap to some of the cars behind.
For you, it's a different teammate. It seems to be a different teammate every year. You must be used to that, but what is Alex bringing to the party? Sean Zarf was a very, very good driver, obviously, but what has Alex got?
Yeah, it's nice. You know, we've had some great amateur drivers the last few years, and Alex is no different. He's new, well, relatively new to this championship compared to some of the other drivers. But he's really hit the ground running, great pace. He's really enjoying the car, and yeah, he's very good in the high-speed corners. He's got to grips quickly with the Lambo, and he's got good confidence. So that's been the key so far.
Best of luck. A strong partnership there, Sandy Mitchell and Alex Martin. David, back to you.
Thanks, Bryn. Yeah, just to go back to that, as Sandy Mitchell described it, 5-second penalty, they're these days called compensation time. So if you're in the top 3, you then carry extra time on your pit stop into the next race. So the Collards get 10 seconds as the winners, 7 seconds for Ian Loggy, Phil Keane, and 5 seconds for Sandy Mitchell and Alex Martin for being third in class, and then you've got the same applied to the top 3 in GT4. Now, Joe Osborne is down on the grid, and it is a drying track. Joe, what does this do for tyre choice? Are we yet at slicks, or are we still 10, 20, 30 minutes away from a slick tyre, do you think?
Yeah, I think your latter one, 30 minutes is the most likely. Obviously, 2 tyres available to us here, Tom, in British GT. The full wet, which we're on, I can see you got nice and warm. They were steaming as we came in. How close are we to the crossover? If you were staying in the car, that's not factoring the AM element of the slick crossover time.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like obviously blue skies now, probably for the rest of the race. So, to be honest, it's hard to call. I mean, the race is certainly currently a lot drier, the track, than it was in the first race. I personally, in the first half of the race, don't see it, going to slicks, but I guess we're going to have to see how it develops. Obviously, there's a lot of cars on track, so yeah, see how it is for the second half of the race with Mark and see if it's worth taking the gamble for 6, if you pardon the pun, and yeah, see how it is. I mean, like I say, it can be known to drive very fast here, but then, yeah, like I say, it's a bit of an unknown. We've not really had, obviously, wet running until today, so yeah, we're not really too sure yet, but we'll see.
Something like that. Defeatist attitude and gamble by name, gamble by nature. So turn 1 gamble, we've obviously got Sandy Mitchell to your inside, someone I would class as a fair but hard driver. What do you rate your chances of being able to go all the way around the outside, obviously the preferred line in these conditions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to see. I mean, it all depends how we get off the line. If I'm in a position to challenge on the outside, then I'll certainly give it a go. Obviously, I've raced Sandy since I was probably 10 years old in go-kart and stuff, so we know each other quite well. I'm not sure if he'll allow me to go on the outside, that's another question, but as I say, you can't really predict it too much. I'll just kind of decide what seems like the right thing in the moment, and yeah, obviously it'd be nice to get into the lead, clear track then, no spray or anything, and sort of get a head down, but then at the same time, if it's not on, we've got a bit of an advantage in the pit stop, so yeah, then it would be trying to stay close to him to maximise that.
I believe you. Fastest McLaren, the man who stole my job. Big respect. Good luck for the race, Tom. Well done. Obviously, we've covered GT3 now, so David, it'd be interesting to hear the thoughts, how the GT4 cars are feeling, I think.
Red.
Yeah, indeed, and here I am with Stuart Parker, so we're not talking to one of the drivers in the car, but the man who runs the machine itself, and we look over your shoulder. We're used to Team Parker being Porsche, but not this season, although last year it wasn't always Porsche yourselves, was it?
No, and I think people forget, we won the Pro-Am Championship in 2018 with Mercedes, so it's a car we're very familiar with. We have run it for 2 years previously, so yeah, happy to be back, and obviously the change is suiting as well at the moment.
Change is doing you very well, especially with Seb in the car. He's looked pretty rapid since he stepped into it.
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, you've got a former overall British GT champion in GT3. It's a pleasure to have him back. He is back on the top of his game, it seems. Charles is coming on leaps and bounds, so I think we're in for a really good year, really exciting year.
Great stuff. We wish you all the best. Let's just jump over here as well, if I may, because I can see Jack Brown, and his teammate is Zach Meakin. So if I get Guy, our camera guy, just to run across to car number 90, and I'm going to just grab Jack Brown very quickly. So your teammate, Zach Meakin, knows the team to your right-hand side very, very well. He raced with them last season. I know you don't really concern yourself with that kind of thing, but last year you came so close to the title, didn't you? But it just got away from you those last few rounds.
Yeah, no, it did. Unfortunate turn of events, a bit of unreliability in the car for the last 3 rounds, which mean, I like to think I'm pretty sure we would have won the championship if that did not happen. So this year, just focus on going again and no mistakes, and just trying to bring it home consistently every race, so win.
Having no mistakes is a lovely line, isn't it? But not having any mistakes is another thing, as we know. And you've got the same car, but you've got a different teammate to work with. Yeah. What have you learned? What can you take from last year that means you can bring into 2024 and aid your challenge, your charge?
I think just experience in the car, knowing procedures, knowing what to do in what situations. This year I'm a lot more relaxed, whereas usually at this point I'd be all shaking and a bit of adrenaline, a bit too much adrenaline going through. But we're a lot more calmer now. Definitely my head is in a bit more of a chill place, which is a good thing for me. So.
Excellent. We wish you very, very well for this season. Relaxed because, David, it is, as we say, blue skies and maybe a drying track, which drivers seem to prefer, particularly around here at Oulton Park.
Absolutely right, Bryn, thank you. Confirmation, nobody is on slicks, but I reckon that if you're thinking long term, you might try and roll the dice at the pit stop window. Trouble is that you're going to put your AM in for the second stint, and it's the AM that wants the confidence. He wants the grip. He doesn't want to gamble on the slick tyre. So the teams will have a real quandary. Perhaps the experience of the AM is going to be the deciding factor. There's Sandy Mitchell's car you see on pole position. Tom Gamble in number 27 McLaren. It was Tom Gamble that Joe was talking to, and the McLaren that he shares with Mark Radcliffe is going to be a 1-2 watch, that's for certain. Phil Keane going toe-to-toe with Ricky Collard. Ricky joking after race 1 that he had a penalty taken off him. Normally he said, I get them, I don't give them away, because initially there was going to be a penalty, but it turned out there was an issue with the wiring of the lights on the safety car. They weren't turned off, they just went out. And then came back on again, and there was debate as to whether Ricky Collard had stayed within the regulation 5 lengths. Well, he had when the lights were on, thinking they'd gone out again, so he then started to control the pace. So the penalty was rescinded, and a race win for Ricky and for Rob, his dad, Collard, earlier on. Grid is formed. It's going to be a regular rolling start, not a safety car start, so they'll have that warming up lap behind the safety car, the pace car as it will be then. It will peel into the pit lane. We will go racing, and they've got to stay out of strife until the pit window. That's when you might be able to think about doing something clever on the tyres. Bear in mind, you've got 6 cars now in the race, 3 per class, with extra time to serve in the pits. And in GT4, there's an extra 14 seconds to add on if you are both silver graded drivers, just to try and balance Pro-Am versus Silver within that category. So the grid is now cleared. GT cars around Oulton Park always make a fabulous sight, and another great thing about GT racing, of course, is that they're different shapes, they're different sizes, and they all make a brilliant noise. Sound, particularly in GT racing, is a very important thing, and a GT grid does it like nothing else. Green flag wave then, the cars blast away from the line, and it's going to be Sandy Mitchell that leads them away in the Barwell Lamborghini. Tom Gamble with him at the front of the grid. And you can see there's still a little bit of spray being generated, but keeping out of trouble is going to be key. We had people off the road early doors in race 1. They'll be eager to avoid it in race 2. So Lamborghini and McLaren factory drivers on the front row. Sandy Mitchell ahead of Tom Gamble. Then you've got Phil Keane lining up alongside the race 1 winner Ricky Collard. Next up comes Adam Smalley, Carrera Cup GB champion last year. Martin Plowman starting 6th ahead of Callum McLeod, and the ever-rapid Marcus Klassen, one to watch from 8th. 9th, it is Alex Buncombe. And to round out the top 10, Hugo Cook in the Audi that won here a couple of years ago in the hands of Sean Balfe and Adam Carroll. Johnny Adam will start 11th, and Raffaele Marciello starting 12th. Then Maxi Goetz, new to the championship this year, and Luis Plato starting 14th for Century Motorsport ahead of reigning champion Dan Harper and Jessica Hawkins starting 16th. Next up, Tom Roach and Sam Neary, both of whom were impressive in race 1. Josh Rowledge at the back of the GT3 grid, having not been able to get a time in qualifying. Seb Morris is on the GT4 pole. Zach Meakin lining up alongside, ahead of Tom Holland in Colin White's CWS Racing Ginetta, and ex-Ginetta factory driver Charlie Robertson now for Century in a BMW 4th. Dan Vaughan's Toyota Supra 5th, ahead of Gordy Much with the very attractive Lotus Emira. Then you've got Luca Hopkinson and Mikey Porter, winner of race 1. He's a long way back on the grid and has an extra 10 seconds to serve in the pits, ahead of William Autumn and then Sai Sanjay, whose car was off the road in qualifying. Alex Walker back in British GT comes next, with the returning Marco Signoretti for company. Next come Nathan Harrison, most recently Porsche racer, and good to have Jordan Albert on the grid for a season next, ahead of Matt Nicol-Jones. And then Tom Wrigley to round out the grid. So that is a very impressive, very mouth-watering lineup ready to go racing. As I keep saying, Joe, the road is dry, there'll be a little bit more confidence, but in that second stint, would you want to put your Am on slick tyres on a road that's a bit marginal?
If you're outside the top 6, yes, because it's your only way to glory on the podium and beyond. If you're in that top 6, you get that horrible, we can only make a mistake from here feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to pan out. Safety cars will make it more interesting. You've got a bit more of a roll of a dice, but yeah, you look at this final sector, not much spray. I know they're going slower, but yeah, I think we're 35 minutes away from slicks being the fastest tyre.
Well, let's see, because we are about to go racing. There might be an element of needing to look after the wets, depending on how quickly the road dries. I tell you, the blue sky is getting more and more there. That's the best we've had all day, with the sun glinting over Lodge Corner. The cars accelerate up Deer Leap. The green flag is ready, the green lights are ready, and round 2 of the British GT Championship is go at Oulton Park as they blast over the line. Dan Harper in the purple BMW looking for a gap on the inside. Maxi Goetz likewise in the blue Mercedes AMG. They dive through Old Hall Corner. 1, 2, 3 of them run a little bit wide, finding all the puddles and not much traction on the outside. Mitchell leads Gamble. 3rd, it is Phil Keane. 4th is Ricky Collard. 5th, Adam Smalley, and Callum McLeod 6th, with Alex Buncombe on the outside.
Yeah, look clean. There's a little bit of side-to-side contact, McLeod and Buncombe, but they've sorted themselves out. All the GT3s through cleanly. The GT4s also look like they've got away with everything. Gamble on the attack straight away, round Island Bend. Bit of a break here into Shell, all the way down to second gear, running the high line Gamble there in the McLaren, trying to get it in. Phil Keane, though, getting a sniff of it. That's always the problem when you're the attacker, but you've also got someone behind. You can sometimes over-focus on that, but look, not much spray in this first chicane. The switched-on drivers will already be thinking about that tyre, looking after element you said about. A little bit of
safety car procedure, single file safety car procedure.
And that's drama at Old Hall Corner that has triggered the safety car. Sai Sanjay is off the road, I think. And we've lost one or two others, which we'll identify in a moment. Matt Nicol-Jones, I think, is caught up in it, and Jordan Albert. So it was those at the back of the grid, and straight away, Peter Daly calls for the safety car. That's bad news for those with the extra compensation time, because it means they have got fewer laps in which to try to build up the time they need, because they're going to be longer in the pits. If you're going to get a safety car, they want it in stint 2.
Yes, exactly, and it's just going to take away that little gap that we were seeing from the top 3 backwards. Still pushing on at the moment in this final sector until they catch the Lotus safety car leaving the pit lane. They may even get caught at the end of the last corner, depending on where the safety car was, but there are 3 GT4 cars stranded somewhere between turns 1 and 2. So 3 cars could be a relatively lengthy one. Just trying to think who's going to be happy there. I think Marcello has made a decent start there. Plowman, I think, was actually the one that got forced the widest at turn 1 on lap 1, and he looks like he's dropped down from a mega qualifying. That's a real shame for the Paddock GT3 car.
So the cars come out of Dearly, cross the line, 1 lap in the book. All of these laps under the safety car will count, of course, within the race duration. And there, look, out of John Ferguson's window, you can just see a car on the outside of the road coming out of Old Hall. There's more drama there. Look, he's sort of out of Old Hall down towards Denton's, where the cars have come to grief. And into the pit lane, number 20, the Lotus then, that's Gordy Much at the wheel of it.
Rear right puncture by the looks of it, or suspension issue. Yeah, just trying to see. There's big damage on the front of the Audi. That's the first blue car on the right. And the Mustang with its hood popped, I believe would be the correct terminology for that car. Obviously have had some kind of coming together that early on. I assume someone's looped it leaving the first corner, and has just been collected there. Looks like we've also lost Charlie Robertson, car 71. He looks like he might be in the gravel at Cascades, turn number 3. So it's been a real lively start. I did check GT4s had got through turn 1 before I made the statement, everyone's clear. But I didn't wait another 20 metres to make sure they were clear of turn number 2, so my fault on that one. But yeah, this maybe looks after these wets a little bit longer. Cars going slower, clearing less water. It just delays the time. The slicks could have been the tyre of choice as well. So I think the safety car is going to be at least another 6 or 7 minutes. Car leaving now looks all okay.
Stays on the lead lap, therefore, and potentially got involved in one of those skirmishes, whether the Old Hall one or the Charlie Robertson one, but he's able to put the new tyre on and go back into the race, staying on that lead lap. It is definitely drying, although granted the slower speed at which we're now running does slightly trick the eye. So 35 we started with, and 31 completed the first lap, so it was a fairly bruising opening lap, no problem in saying that, as Mark Lemmer ponders what this is going to do now to his 2 cars, both of which have to serve a longer pit stop, having had their success in race 1.
Yeah, really tough, but obviously it's always a positive that you've got that compensation time, and it's the best way to start the year. Mark Lemmer himself and Barwell, sort of serial winners, aren't they, in this championship? Second year now with Evo 2. Wow, big damage on the rear right of that McLaren. You can see how it's sat. That has pinged off the barrier. Look at the tyre marks all the way across the grass. So this is what we saw at the start. You can see Plowman in the middle of Clutton and McLeod. Gets past Clutton, then McLeod gets a little bit at the back of Smalley, which then makes him run wide. Plowman going to get traction. Then look at that, Robertson. Did he get help from the Ginetta there? Hard to say. Spinning across, avoiding action. The McLaren, the Race Lab one first. Then Albert gets hit by the Mustang. It was all Constantino Robertson spinning across the track. I don't know if he was helped or not, is the hard bit to say there. Matt Nicol-Jones, car owner, team owner and driver. When it goes wrong as all 3 of those job roles, it's not going to be a good weekend, is it?
No, and unfortunately, that's 3 cars to retrieve from the grass. They're heavy, the grass is wet, it's not that easy to send the recovery vehicles over there, so they're going to have to be brought back onto the track, then onto the flatbed. Big disappointment for 3 teams already, and maybe a 4th team with disappointment, and that's Barwell, because the safety car does not help them on these extra pit stop times. Mark Lemmer is with Bryn.
Well, Mark, we thought everyone had got through that first corner unscathed, and it all seemed to kick off from there. What are the drivers saying, or what's your driver saying to you about the track conditions from this side of the garage?
Yeah, obviously it's pretty slippery out there. The drivers are reporting that it's still quite a lot of standing water here and there. We're obviously expecting a drier line because of the nature of Oulton, but at the moment it's just taking it cautious.
Are you looking at a particular time? Obviously you like to keep the pros out for as long as you can before you bring them in this second race here, so is that the game plan from this moment, just keep them out for as long, or if it starts to dry even more, will you bring them in early?
If it dries out, we'll go with the correct tyre decision. The tricky thing is putting the AMs out on a damp but drying circuit on slicks is the tricky call. So it's always a tough call, but it will be down to the pros to make that call.
It certainly will be. Thanks, Mark.
So Mark Lemmer, not normal to hear Mark a little bit reticent, actually. He didn't sound quite as bullish as often he does. Let's have another look at the start. I mean, yes, the road is still wet, and Charlie Robertson's spin was the real catalyst for that. We'll see whether or not we can deduce whether there was contact. Nothing has yet come up from race control saying there's an incident is being looked at, but maybe they've got quite a lot to process in the recovery operation. First of all, having a look back here from the car of Sandy Mitchell as through Old Hall Corner they came, accelerating downhill. Good getaway by Tom Gamble, staying in second spot there in the McLaren. That car looking much quicker this year.
Yeah, really done a good job, Optimum there. Mark Ratcliffe, we know, has got quicker. Tom Gamble knows that car really well now, with all the development stuff he does do. But just look at how close these cars are able to be with each other. Like, we're doing 180, sort of 200 kilometres an hour through turn one, and then we look from the outside, it really give you how close they are. These cars are £700,000, the front bumper's £6,000 alone. The trust these guys have in their own ability always astonishes me as we on time cut to something going wrong. It's just so hard. I'm amazed how much damage there is on all of those cars, because it was glancing blows, wasn't it? But they were obviously still going at a fair rate of knots.
I mean, part of the problem is that grass is lumpy and bumpy, and so some of the damage is done by a low car going across an undulating, bumpy grass verge. And another look at that Charlie Robertson spin, I don't think there was contact. I think he just ran a bit wide and lost traction of the rear, and around it went. BMW is a new car to him.
Yeah, it definitely is. Traction control, though, I would have thought would save something like that. He's obviously been at Ginetta a long time, so there would be a slight irony if he was fired off by his former employer. I'm sure there's no sour grapes between him and Lawrence Tomlinson. Been a great servant for Ginetta, and he's actually kind of taken a Ginetta graduate and Ravi Rammeed, his teammate, all the way through to the dizzying heights of British GT4, and I think they've got even bigger aspirations. But look at the front of that Audi. I'm surprised that's so damaged, because it looked like that must have been from the back of the McLaren then, I guess, and then the Mustangs hit the back of that, but they've had a torrid day with that stellar Audi GT4. Great to have the Audi GT4 back. We haven't had it, and they've done a good test program, but I think they're going to have to regroup a little bit ahead of Silverstone to be sharper on the front of the grid where they obviously deserve to be.
Sai Sanjay in the McLaren, sad to say, a second incident. He was off the road in the qualifying session, and okay, he was able to get to the end of race one, but then the Indian driver having another drama and early out of race two. Sai Sanjay Tirugnana Sambandan, to give him his full title, but Sai Sanjay for the rest of the season, giving him his notional Sunday best name. We'll go with the shortened version from here on in. GT4 being led from pole by Seb Morris, who is aiming to be only the second driver to win the GT3 and GT4 championships, the other one being Rick Parfitt. And Seb, of course, was a pretty handy single-seater racer before he came into GT racing. Number 90 McLaren is second in GT4 currently, Zach Meakin at the wheel of it. And then third is the Ginetta of Tom Holland, the car shared with the redoubtable Colin White, who for many, many years was the man to beat in national hot rod racing, came across into circuits with Ginettas, and he's been another loyal servant of the brand, and came back into racing last year after missing a third of a season or so after a big accident at Thruxton back in 2022.
It's interesting to see these dark shapes following the cars. I haven't seen that at all today. It's almost like the sun's out casting some kind of shadow on them, and I still think this track's going to dry quick. With this sun out, there's a gentle breeze. We're now down to how many? 32 cars circulating still, roughly. So it is going to be quick, 31. So I think we've got a chance here still, and why I keep going on about it is the time difference between the wet and the slick. Normally it's 10 seconds. Around Oulton a little bit more due to the surface and how many corners we have here. But if you can get onto that slick, you're just going to be given free time every single lap up to that perfect number of 10 or 11 seconds. So you can be P nowhere and then suddenly be on the right tyre when everyone else is a little scared to commit, and suddenly you can really turn your afternoon around.
Now there, the field turning through Old Hall Corner, and just bear in mind as well that we will have the mandatory pit window to think about. Now the road is clear, so I think we're not far away from going racing, but if you're a GT3 car, you can come into the pits after 22 and before 32 minutes have done. In GT4 you're in after 28 and before 38, and those minimum times 70 seconds line to line, pit in to pit out in GT3. In GT4 it's 100 seconds. If you're a GT4 silver, I know I've said it already, but you add another 14 seconds on, and if you are in the top 3 in the previous race, there's 10, 7 and 5 seconds to add on additionally there. So it does put a bit of pressure on the pit crew, not only in cycling the car one driver in, one driver out, but knowing how long you're meant to be stopping for and making sure you don't release the car too early, because if you're under the regulation pit stop time, a penalty comes. Yeah,
there's a huge amount of math, risk, calculation, everything being done by the teams there. I actually remember 16 years ago I did the first ever British GT4 race here, ended up winning it, but I wasn't going to tell you that bit.
You did?
Yeah, amazing, right? It was a small grid in all fairness. But we had very basic technology there, no GPS sensors. Yeah. It was my old man with a stopwatch. He stood by the entry line and pegged it down to the pit lane.
Safety car in this lap, safety car lights out at T13.
Let's hope they are T13 this time and we don't have a wiring loom issue on that. But yeah, the technology's moved on so far. My dad got it wrong. We had a massive argument and we've just about made up since. So there's a huge amount going on there. And of course, you don't want to lose any time. You don't want to be a single tenth over, but a single tenth under, the penalty is just not worth it. That's the trade, the risk versus the reward. So who's looking racy at the start of this sort of restart period? Looks like Keeney's already stopped really weaving. He's ready just to go whenever Gamble follows Mitchell.
Lights are out on top of the safety car. Hat tip also here to Lorna Vickers, the safety car driver, because she's got to go at a good enough pace to keep the tyres relatively warm for the race cars behind, except of course she's also on the same greasy track surface and can't afford to make a mistake. Lorna's a pretty rapid Formula Ford racer herself, but has brought the cars round then up to the end of lap number 5 after a pretty long safety car period. Everybody now bunches up. Sandy Mitchell will decide when to accelerate away, which is now coming into Lodge Corner, and he will try and get a break over Tom Gamble, and he's done so by a length and a bit, I would offer you, as he comes up towards the line, with now for third place Phil Keane coming under attack from Ricky Collard as they dive down towards Old Hall. Ricky not able to do a send up the inside there, wasn't quite close enough. You've got Callum McLeod 5th and Adam Smalley in 6th. As once more we go racing.
Really, really good restart by Collard there in that 4th place car. A little bit too much curb there. You can see how unsettled that was there, all streaming through. Maxi Gertz on the back of Johnny Adam there. Not used to seeing drivers like those two and Marcello in front of them so far back. Competitive is this field British GT. A single element that isn't right, you're not going to be challenging for a win, and I think that's what those guys are experiencing. Super dry line on the exit of Island there. You can actually see the dry part of the tarmac starting to come through. I think we've got a chance where we're going to see some pretty wacky lines. People looking to get their outside tyres on the driest bit of tarmac. It almost doesn't matter where that tarmac is. If it's drier, it is faster, and you just need your outside tyres there. And that is going to be, I think, the name of the game for the next part of this pro stint we're watching.
The incident that caused Charlie Robertson to spin does look like it involved a Ginetta, because number 58, Tom Holland, in the Colin White car, is also being investigated for his part in it at the end of the race. So not during, but at the end of the race. That'll be looked at. There's your GT4 leader, Seb Morris. Local driver coming down through his lots. There's the overall race leader, the Nottingham-based Scotsman, Sandy Mitchell, with Tom Gamble, another Nottingham-based driver, or East Midlands driver, going after him. Half a second between the two at the start of the lap, and it's not grown by much. Phil Keane still hanging on to third place as Dan Harper goes through a little bit further back with Sam Neary right on his tail. BMW versus Mercedes. The road is drying fast to the eye.
Yeah, it really is. You can see the cars starting to look for the wetter parts of the track now on the straights, as we see Harper there down the inside of Neary. Who's going to get the better drive? Looks like Neary's got momentum. Harper's got the inside though, coming into turn number 1. Who's going to blink first? I think there's a chance they're going to run side by side all the way through here. Neary won't give in, which he then does, which is nice. Tucks in and off he goes, but he's done it for tactical reasons to get the switchback. Very clever driving from Sam Neary all the way down the avenue. Now again on the outside though for Cascades. What's he going to do? Try and send it all the way around the outside. Is Harper going to ease him out? Very fair driving, big wobble. Takes a track limit warning for that one, Sam Neary, but super smart, really smart there at turn 1. Did the exact opposite to what I thought he would, and it paid off.
And they're not done yet, because Dan Harper wants the place back then, the BMW. And who says these cars are too wide for Oulton Park? He was like a rolling start for 3 or 4 corners. That great racing, Sam Neary, who gets better every season, moves ahead of the reigning champion Dan Harper. That BMW looks to be struggling for pace a little bit. As further back you can see for 10th and 11th, Johnny Adam in the Mercedes 87 versus Maxi Goetz in number 18 Mercedes. So a good fight going on there. In GT4, meanwhile, another battle pack pouring through, including number 61, the Ford Mustang, the surviving Mustang, Marco Signoretti at the wheel of that car, and he is surrounded by traffic. But look who is ahead. Tom Wrigley from last on the grid. Tom Wrigley, number 29 BMW, up to 7th in the category. He is charging.
Really, really good. He obviously read that turn 1 instant super well and must have just been able to keep his foot pinned and get past everyone that was checking up. Actually see Gordy Much in the background there trying to get a move on the 11 car. He's on the lead lap, so he's done well with that safety car now to be back in the pack, fighting hard. He's going to have to really get his head down now to see if he can rescue a result.
And we've had the Toyota Supra, Dan Vaughan, come into the pit lane. We didn't see it, but he's in the pits then, so that's had a drama somewhere.
Yeah, when race 1 they actually had a throttle issue, which is why they went off under the full course yellow. So speaking with the drivers, the throttle's stuck open, hence why they went off. But also we did see the rear wheel spinning as it was nosing the barrier, so could be that problem raising its head a little bit maybe.
Well, they're going to drop off the lead lap then, as there in GT4, number 17 Mercedes of Luca Hopkinson squabbles with number 47, the charging Will Oulton in the Aston Martin. Seb Morris goes by to lead the class, and now look, the Aston lines up for a move on the inside. Will Oulton breaks as late as he dares, going down towards Old Hall Corner, gets the grip on the inside, gets the place, or does he? Luca Hopkinson on the outside is run wide up the curb, but does have to slot in behind.
You see how wet that exit curb is there. I think it just cost him a little bit of traction potentially. See the Mustang, the BMW and the Lotus all fighting here all the way around the outside for Gordy Much. Too much outside. You could just see the BMW was suggesting that is what was going to happen, and he ran him out of road and he had to back out. Now lost that place he gained last lap into Knickerbrook chicane, and he has to do all the work again to get past Walker in that paddock McLaren.
So the race leaders currently on lap 8, and we've had a track limit warning now offered up to the Buncombe brothers McLaren, number 2 McLaren, Alex Buncombe at the wheel of it, as the road gets ever drier, ever faster. The wet tyre is going to be losing its edge, and you'll see people, Joe talked early on about going for some wacky lines if there was grip. They're going to be for some wacky lines to find a puddle to try and keep the tyres cool as well.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a skill in itself, because some straights actually stay drier, maybe on the racing line, depending on camber. It's a bit like when it's snowing and you're trying to follow the car tracks in front of you. It's the opposite. You want to try and get where no one else has been to give yourself an advantage. These tyres can get easily up to 100 degrees, but the wet's really at 70, 75 degrees, start to chunk up, so literally the blocks tear off, and you can feel that underneath you, the car sliding around like you've got literal jelly on each corner. It's a horrible, horrible feeling, and the worst bit is you know it's your fault. You've pushed too hard. You haven't done a good enough job to keep them cool, while everyone around you just makes you look like an absolute idiot, and that's what you've got to do as a driver, is look at the bigger picture of this game.
We were talking about Tom Wrigley early on doing a great job, gaining 7 places in class. What about Nathan Harrison just going out of shot, because he's gained 8 in his class then in the Lotus. So Nathan Harrison, former Mini racer, former Porsche racer, coming into British GT this year, and that's been a really impressive start to the race. The Lotus Emira, good to have the Lotus brand back on the grid. Go back to the very early days of British GT, when the late Hugh Chamberlain was running Lotuses, for example, Lotus Esprit. It's a name that's come and gone from the championship, and we're glad it's back.
Yeah, it just looks right, that car as well.
Yeah, right for GT4.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the Evora winning the championship with Gavin Kershaw and Osman Yusuf years ago, back to GT3, but I do think that Lotus is going to be a surprise prize package for a lot. That's on its worst BOP, the team tell me at the moment. Lowest power, highest weight. Everyone gets their violin out when
Teams always tell you it's their worst BOP. That's their default setting.
And they think I care. That's the weirdest thing. But anyway, I think that car is going to get quicker and quicker. New team to British GT as well this season in Mahiki Racing.
The BOP is the balance of performance, which is designed to equate all the cars within the category, because you've got front engine, mid engine, rear engine, normally aspirated turbos, and the balance of performance by ride height, by aero, by the air restrictor is designed to try to make it as level a playing field as possible. It's a very cleverly offered method of doing it, and it largely works very, very well. Right now, though, Sandy Mitchell is leading. Now, how about this? He is 4.6 seconds clear of Tom Gamble. He serves an extra 5 in the pits. He's very nearly cleared that compensation penalty.
Yeah, the rate he's going, he will be clear there in the next lap and a half, in all fairness. But that lap time he did, a 42.6, is under that 10-second window to the slick time we saw in qualifying. So we're definitely in a point where slicks could be faster. Looking down the timing screen, who do I think is going to gamble? My first choice is actually Rob Collard. With his experience and knowledge, I think in fourth they've got a chance. Adam Balfe potentially getting in the number 59 car, and then everyone behind them has nothing to lose, in my opinion. Completely dry out of shell there. You can see that. So I think someone's got to take the gamble at the pit window. There's no time lost. There's plenty of time for the GT3s and 4s to swap all 4 tyres, and they should have some new slicks saved because no one used any in race 1 this morning.
No, you're absolutely right. And there, look, number 15, Raffaele Marciello getting onto the back of Marcus Classen, looking for 8th place in GT4. Number 58, Ginetta of Tom Holland goes through. That car now down to 4th in class, but Seb Morris, who will give way to Charles Dawson, still leads. He's not got a massive lead over Mikey Porter. Mikey in turn now up into 2nd, trying to fend off Zach Meakin. And remember that the number 7 Aston Martin that won race 1 in class was only 8th on the GT4 grid, so that is another one that's made up good progress.
Yeah, it's really helped them, this sort of safety car. It's given them two bites of the cherry. Marciello hounding Clutton now. Where's he going to go? Where's the strength for this BMW? McLaren goes in a little bit deeper. He should get a good drive out of there. I think he'll live to fight another day. Look how dirty that windscreen is. We get into that awful stage where there's no water to use to clean the windscreen. I know the Lamborghinis actually have a wash system to be able to clean it. Is he going to go all the way around the outside? No way. Is he got the grip? Has he got the traction? Luckily I got that one right, but he's got a face full of mud there. You can see, I can't see barely anything into the sunlight. That's going to get hard work. The team will be able to clean it in the pit stop, but we're still a few laps away from that.
And Raffaele Marciello, the BMW factory driver for this year onwards, because he switched from Mercedes to BMW, giving it everything to try to gain a place for John Ferguson. Behind is Johnny Adam, and he in turn is taking Maxi Goetz with him. Johnny, an Aston Martin factory driver, and Maxi Goetz, Mercedes AMG factory driver. New to Oulton Park, there he is in the Mercedes number 18 that he shares with Kevin Say, coming out of Shell Oil's corner now. So great racing in the sunshine at Oulton Park, but temperatures are going up and up and up. The road is getting drier and drier and drier, and Sandy Mitchell has done the fastest lap of the race at 1:42.6, but these wet tyres pretty soon are going to be really crying for mercy, aren't they?
They really are. In these conditions, they've literally probably only got 20-30 kilometres of life on them, which around here 6 or 7 laps, and then they really start to fade quickly. You see it switch there, actually. The 7 car in front of Seb Morris now. Wonder where that happened. You said that before the gap wasn't big. Maybe it was the gap getting smaller, or was it a mistake from Morris? It'd be interesting. Can't see any damage on that Mercedes, however.
Well, Mikey Porter, like I said, up from 8th on the grid. He's been on attack mode right from the start of the race. He's caught, he's passed Seb Morris, and he's edging away a little bit, isn't he? So that Aston Martin revelling in these conditions as further back. Luca Hopkinson on the inside line, taking Gordy Much with him. They both go ahead of Marco Signoretti. And don't forget, Gordy Much made that early pit stop, so he was right at the back of the queue when we went green.
Yeah, Marcello now the inside of Clutton. Clutton giving him the hip and shoulder, letting him know he's not going to back down easy. Is he going to do the near? Is he going to back it back in, try and get the run? There's just so much speed off that mid-corner. Clutton does get a good exit, a bit of mud, just trying to widen the track for Jonathan Palmer, the owner of Oulton Park, but it looks like that is job done. Let's see what Marcello's got. A great rear view here. Let's see, does he pull anything on exit? The BOP looks pretty fair at that point, just stretches its legs, doesn't it, into Island. Let's see where they go. But Marcello is the man on the move in GT3, it seems.
Yeah, John Ferguson wanted to remain as having Raffaele Marcello with him as his co-driver. Raffaele went to BMW, so did John Ferguson. Got rid of the Mercedes AMG at Ram Racing and got this BMW. Down towards Lodge Corner here, look, you've got number 90 Zach Meakin, Tom Holland behind him, and then 47 of Will Oulton. So this is third, fourth, fifth in GT4, and Tom Holland trying to squeeze alongside as they come over the timing line. He's on the outside line for Old Hall Corner. The Ginetta will break late, but the McLaren on the tighter line takes the place back. Tom Holland finds that wet, friction-free curb on the outside, slides wide, and up the inside, Will Oulton in the Aston Martin goes through, gains the place, goes through up into fourth in class. Great battle this in GT4.
Yeah, lots of different lines, lots of different types of cars delivering it. I think Holland there probably a bit too aggressive, tried to go all the way around the outside, and when you're the car on the inside, you've got physics on your side. As a quick look to the inside, that Aston's got some serious pace to be able to even have a look there. You see Meakin sliding around there. I just think all of these cars are going to have to go to slicks. I don't think it's actually a gamble anymore. I think it's the right decision for all of them there. You can just see the dry line expanding. It's all like 10, 20 centimetres wider each lap.
And the GT3 pit window is now open, so I'm waiting to see if anybody from GT3 dives in. Not yet, strangely, so the pros are staying out for as long as they can. You've got this sort of mix, haven't you? Because on the one hand, you want your pro to be out for as long as possible because they are the quicker driver, but you don't want to be out there losing time if the slick is now the quicker tyre. So this is the gamble.
Yeah, and that's probably where the cars further back can take a gamble, because you do want your pro in as long. But I think an AM on a slick would be 2 or 3 seconds quicker than a pro right now on a wet. But the longer you wait, the drier the track goes, the more chance your AM has of not making a mistake down the inside for the Aston Martin. Job done all the way through Water Tower there. That was an amazing move. I've not actually seen that one done for a long time on pure power. That was a mega move. And again, maybe the McLaren just starting to eat up its rear tyres. Obviously mid-engine against the Ginetta and the Aston front engine, just working their tyres differently. Weight distribution so key in a race car.
And the Toyota Supra we were talking about has been retired with damaged steering sustained at the start of this race. So not the throttle drama of race one, but damaged steering. So another miserable day, sadly, for the Toyota Gazoo Racing squad. As now, look, the number 47, Will Oulton, Aston Martin third in class. He's absolutely sauntering away as he goes for the damper part of the road, tries to keep the tyres cool. Game on for fourth place. Zach Meakin in the McLaren, just ahead of Tom Holland. But that McLaren is fading a little bit, bearing in mind it started second in class on the grid.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the rear's not happy as well, really squirming around, having to find traction to try and get the car going. So go on board. I think that might be a bit of an issue as well. He's not used the wiper. Is that because he's worried it's going to smear it, or is it because it's broken all the way onto the grass? Yeah, it's so hard in these conditions, but we get it year in, year out at Oulton. I went ballistic once at the team manager for not installing a washer fluid system that I'd asked, and he even said to, why don't you just buy a super soaker and spray me from the pit wall as I come past, because you can see nothing, and you're trying to drive within millimeters of perfection, but yet you're using sensors that aren't your vision. Bunkum in to hand to bunkum, slicks going on.
Yeah, and that's the first significant car to pit, because that's the first of the GT3s. Now, has that been an inspired move to get onto the slick tyre ahead of everybody else?
Yes, unless it's slower, but I generally think it's 2 or 3 seconds quicker as soon as they get out. As soon as we get his sector times, we'll be going. They're brand new Pirellis, so you can see the difference. See the Pirelli and the P0 on the tyre wall, the yellow writing. Only the slick has that. The wet is all black, so we'll be able to keep an eye on that easily. But those tyres will be hot out the oven at RGN, 90 degrees, 100 degrees even. Sometimes you get them a bit too hot, so by the time they're on the car and you're cruising down pit lane, they come into the window. But I think that is an inspired choice. Is it going to cause others to blink? That's now the issue. I think it probably will.
The other thing they've gained on here is that they've got their pit stop out of the way. Remember, they're staggered pit windows, but the GT4 window is open as well now. So potentially the pit lane is going to become very, very crowded indeed. Whereas the RJN team you've just been looking at had an empty pit lane all to themselves. So it wasn't just the tyre choice timing that was inspired, it was the fact that it was an empty pit lane. And look, another lap done by Sandy Mitchell. Some of the GT4 cars come in, but Sandy Mitchell continues. Now we'll keep an eye on his laps. They are going up. 1:44.5 last time, but we need a flying lap out of Alex Bunkum and Chris Bunkum's McLaren. It'll be Chris Bunkum behind the wheel of it now before we get a real idea on which is the correct tyre.
Yeah, and I generally think it is going to be 2 or 3 seconds, so you've got to respond. We see it in Formula 1, the under or overcut. If you don't respond quick enough, you just lose track position so quickly. I can't see any other GT3s coming in as we see Rowledge. I think that is just having a little spin potentially.
Johnny Adam, isn't it?
Sorry, yeah, Johnny Adam, the 86, you're right. Has he got an issue? Can he get going? It looks like he's had a spin to me purely on the grass. Let's have a look.
He's given a bit of help, wasn't he? He's got Maxi Gertz behind him, and as they come through the corner, Maxi possibly got into the tail because bodywork flies. It looks like there was contact.
Definitely. I mean, the splitter and diffuser hit, and it's quite hard to see the bumpers, but that looked like he pushed him and then carried on pushing him all the way round. I think that will be a drive-through penalty. See Johnny Adam pitting straight away, hopefully just for tyres, as we see Andrew Howard getting in, Jester Hawkins handing over. Still wets on the rear, but I could hear some wheel guns rattling. So are they going to pit this lap?
So 78 still leads the way. Sandy Mitchell really does need to come in at the end of this lap because the pit window is going to close in just under 2 minutes' time. He can't really afford to risk another lap. He's left it about as late as he dares, so Sandy Mitchell and others need to be in this time because the leading 7 have yet to stop. This is Sandy Mitchell's car. He will give way to Alex Martin. There you can see those now on their slicks leaving the pit lane, and it's going to be a really nervous first 2-3 laps on a GT3 car. A slick road. Now, into the pits comes the race leader. So Sandy Mitchell is in, and I suspect there'll be a whole load of cars following suit. Yes, there are. Look out of the window, and the pit lane's getting busy. But Lewis Plato's 22 BMW, now Carl Cavers at the wheel, has caused a blockage, and 29 can't go anywhere.
It's blocked his own teammate in. It's the problem with being the end of the pit lane. You get everyone in the fast lane that have priority over you. I think there the car controller's got to be talking to the driver and say, it's busy, I need you to try and merge. And it's the worst thing you'll hear as a driver from your car controller is merge. Basically means there's not a space, but you need to find one.
Well, that certainly dropped 22 places because it has fallen behind Johnny Adam, now Giacomo Petrobelli, for example. Barwell serving the stops, Alex Martin and Rob Collard getting in. John Ferguson takes over from new dad Raffaele Marcello. Job done. And Raffaele doesn't just walk away. He will help John Ferguson get in and make sure that the incoming driver is happy and comfortable, and he can impart any knowledge of the track, like where it might be wetter at a given corner than anywhere else.
Yeah, and obviously huge commitment, like you said, from John Ferguson to change from Mercedes to BMW, as we see Bunkin on slicks and Neary on slicks. The McLaren really bucking around, wasn't it, on traction there. Both of them on slicks, but maybe each tyre, and Gamble in front of Mitchell. So that compensation time has cost them in the pit lane. Car still pushing back.
But,
sorry,
I was going to say, yes, it's hurt them, but they came in 7 seconds ahead. So that's a slower stop for Barwell because, yes, you've got the 5 seconds, but they should have had something in hand if they came in with a 7.1 second cushion. Yeah,
very true. But you're just seeing all the cars still getting blocked in there at the end of pit lane. Doesn't look like there's any penalties needed. So we've got Radcliffe versus Martin. Martin in his first year of British GT. Radcliffe in his second. But look at Martin, he's got the traction and he's gone. Is that caution from Radcliffe or is that settings on the traction control? Might be too intrusive. They're going to battle out who's got the dry inside bit. That's Martin. Be careful there, boys. It's going to be so slippy. It'll be like going from hot, sticky glue to ice in an instant. Dry line to that slightly damper offline problem.
So we need to have a look at the order at the end of this next lap because pretty much now all the pit stops are going to cycle through. We also would be interested to see where the number 2 McLaren is going to bleed in. Well, at the moment, incidentally, it is doing absolute bests in the sectors because Chris Buncombe has just done the best of anybody in Sector 1, but it's his overall situation that we need to be having a look at. So down they come towards Hislops. This is where it's a little bit damper offline, but no dramas for Alex Martin, no dramas for Mark Radcliffe either, as they tiptoe their way through, gentle with the power coming into Knickerbrook.
Yeah, so easy. 550, 560 horsepower in these GT3 cars, all trying to go through just the rear wheels.
Adam Smalley there, number 59, up into 4th place. He was 6th when he pitted, so on the pit stops, that car's gained 2 spots, jumped ahead of Callum McLeod and Mike Price's Mercedes, and of the Collards they got ahead of as well because they were having to sit there for an extra 10 seconds. But Adam Smalley, first event in British GT, and he's going really well. Podium beckons.
Yeah, it really does. Sean Balfe, real good stalwart of British GT, knows how to handle that McLaren now. He was one of the first customers from McLaren buying that car, has now come back, realised that it's the best car on the grid, I think, and he wants to drive it more and more. We can see Buncombe now on the back of Mike Price, again, someone that's improved so much. John Ferguson behind, Tilbrook behind them. This is, again, a fiery group of drivers, all very tight together.
Chris Buncombe, number 2 McLaren, fastest lap of the race, contact at Old Hall Corner as he dives up the inside of Mike Price. but that McLaren was coming through. Now John Ferguson tries to find a way past him as they go down towards Denton's. Chris Buncombe a little bit delayed by Mike Price getting in the way, and Mike Price has got damage. He was up the curb. The line is wrong coming into Cascade, so I rather fear that brush between the McLaren and the Mercedes has done for Mike Price. But Chris Buncombe then was the quickest man on the circuit. Now Andrew Howard is the quickest man, a 1:41.006. If you wanted proof that slicks is now the absolute only way to go, here it is on the timing screen.
Exactly that, and I think we've still got another 4 or 5 seconds with drivers getting the tyres up to temperature, getting used to it as well, so there's still a huge amount of variables. It was a lunge from Buncombe into turn 1, but I think it was a fair lunge. It caught the corner of my eye, I have to say, but I think he just had so much closing speed. Price wasn't expecting him to be there and turned in, and the first thing he knew Buncombe was there was the contact side to side, and you're right, I think it looked like it'd done some damage maybe to the front right corner, because into Cascades you saw him bounce up the curb, and the car not looking particularly happy.
Ian Loggy then in the Mercedes here, you're looking at the Scottish driver, but he lives not that far from Oulton Park, local resident, so on kind of home soil. He is third, and we've got a full course yellow. Everyone has slowed down. The full course yellow has been called for, so everybody slows down to the 80 kilometres an hour, and they come into Lodge Corner. Full course yellow has been called for. That means somebody's off the road somewhere in an awkward place, or there's debris on the road that needs attending to. So full course yellow is called for, and for the moment then everybody has to go at that delta speed. Andrew Howard, as I say, has done the fastest lap, and it looks like Josh Rowledge, possibly number 10 Aston, is the one off the road, because on our GPS track map he's not moving.
No, turn 1 exit. Actually pretty similar to where we saw the lap 1 issue for the GT4 cars, but you saw how quickly the cars got on the anchors. That they'll be told from Peter Daly and race control there's a countdown all the way from 10 seconds, so you need to time it just right. It's a bit like approaching an average speed on the motorway. You want to get home as quickly as possible. You know it's 50 miles an hour, but the first average speed camera is 200 metres in, so you don't start braking until your car gets pictured 200 metres in, because it's a safe zone, it's your buffer. Why waste your time? You want to go and see your wife, most people do anyway, but it just means that you've got to maximise another thing in motorsport now. It's not just a safety car where you cruise up, catch the back of it and relax. It's a stressful process. If it's a short full course yellow, we could go straight back to green, so you're ready on the limiter, on the full course yellow button. As soon as you hear the word, you're off that and you're straight back to speed. If it's a longer one, we will go to a safety car, so it kind of takes away the getting up to speed element away, but that's a huge amount of damage on the front of that.
Yes.
You can see the front missing the whole bonnet, you can see the barrier on the left-hand side, but very late off. You can see the gravel trap that's been installed actually. First year Oulton Park has had a gravel trap at turn number 1. Looks like Josh is out of the car and okay, which is the main thing. Really, really tough start to the weekend for that car. His teammate going off in practice, then missing qualifying, and today's been a rough ride.
The gravel trap stops you if you're too fast coming in. It doesn't stop you, of course, if you're having a spin out of the corner. We did have Ginettas going off in an earlier race coming into Old Hall, and the gravel trap claiming them, but that's the other side of the corner. Just while we have a moment to catch breath, remember we were looking at pit stops and we identified the Carl Cavers BMW being a bit of a cork in the bottle. Apparently he'd stalled the engine, so that's why the car wasn't moving. It wasn't purely that he couldn't move and didn't have lock, it was that in trying to get going the engine had stalled, and it's not an instant thing. You know, there's a sort of cycle that you have to like 30 seconds or so before you can really try again. Charles Dawson is still leading GT4. That car led early on and lost the lead, but has fought back, and Charles Dawson now leads the way, having had an extra 7 seconds to serve after second place in class in the earlier race. And it is Mark Warren in second place, who was oh so impressive in the Porsche Sprint Challenge last year. As an AM, he was a multiple outright race winner, beating the pros. And then third in class is the race 1 winning Jamie Day, Mikey Porter, Aston Martin. So 31 leads the way in class, and there is second, number 47, so it's a massive lead. Third, there, number 7. Now, the longer that we have a full course yellow, the more likely we are to have a safety car to bring tyres up to temperature and then be able to go back racing. So although we've got these big gaps at the moment, then I suspect that when you have the safety car out, of course, all the gaps will disappear because they'll all bunch up one behind the other. Now, the pit stop has been good news for Zach Meakin and Jack Brown's McLaren, because they've got the windscreen cleaned.
Yeah, that's one of the easiest upgrades you can do to your car is vision, but just nothing you can do. Like I said, I think the wiper is probably fine, and they just know if you turn that on and smear that mud and sort of grit. It's awful, the stuff you get. Seb Morris, hopefully with his girlfriend, not sister there by the looks of it. I think they're going to be strong this year. I think Dawson has been awesome for an AM, straight on it. They did another GT Championship last year, but it's their first year in British GT, and he's been so quick. And I think that Mercedes, for the amateur driver, gives so much confidence that you're able to hustle the car in conditions like this, which are tricky. It just gives you a nice little warm hug, and it just kind of lets you bring it in gently, where some of the other cars just seem a bit edgier and harder to extract that sort of confidence feeling in these conditions.
Yeah, Charles Dawson found himself in a few incidents when he came into the GT4 European Series sort of midway through last year, but going nicely here. There you've got number 3, Callum McLeod, and it's Mike Price rather at the wheel now, and behind is Kevin Say, who's taken over from Maxi Goetz. I was rather concerned early on that Mike Price may have picked up damage. Remember the car after that clash with Chris Buncombe didn't look 100%, but he stayed out there. But Kevin Say behind, he's been a race winner here in the past, so I think he'll be able to go charging by. The man from Macau, not suggesting Oulton Park and Macau are swap one for the other, but they're both challenging circuits. These non-homologated GT machines, you can see, they're in the open class, making their way off track, back to base. So some are used for repairing barriers and taking the extra recticel or tar stacks, whatever you might need, to an incident zone, and other vehicles to remove cars. But the road is getting clearer, but I would anticipate we'll go safety car to bring the speed up, to bring the tyres up to temperature, and then we can go racing.
Yeah, even more important, slicks in these conditions are already probably suboptimal, so they need that little help to get them up to their range of working. They can be real lethal. I remember a few Spa 24s I've done with long full course yellows before we used to have this then safety car after procedure, and you'd be at like 1.1 bar, like 40 degrees, almost half of where you want to be, pushing on through Eau Rouge at night, and you just get a rear left tyre blowout in front of you. As soon as they're too low, the pressure, the tyre wall is too soft, it can't support the car. So it's not just kind of a nicety, it is important for the driver to be able to get the tyre back into that window.
Confirmation from TSL, the timekeeping service. Everybody has done their pit stop within the regulation time. Nobody has contravened a regulation there, so that's one bit of good news. And so Alex Martin, race leader, first weekend in British GT. Now there's a sight you don't find terribly often, with vans, with pickup trucks, with diggers and a Lamborghini coming through, but the circuit vehicles keep out of harm's way, thankfully. And down towards Lodge Corner comes Alex Martin. That'll be a meme by the end of the day, that last shot of the Lambo getting past the assortment of vehicles. So what have we got left in the race? Only 18 minutes. The incident that Chris Buncombe and Mike Price had, that little bit of contact at Old Hall, has been noted by race control. Might have to be looked at later, but as the leaders come by, Alex Martin wants to go racing. And of course, Ian Loggy in third place. Look how much time he has lost. He wants this safety car pronto, then he can catch up to the queue.
Yeah, he really does, and they've got no GT4 cars in between like we saw in race 1, so it's going to make it a clean restart for all of these guys. I'm a little worried of that convoy of track vehicles making its way round to turn number 1, so it might be a bit more barrier damage than we think. Hopefully in the 17 minutes remaining we can get some laps back to green, because this could be a real firecracker of a race with the conditions. Just, I mean, the track is now drier than my dad jokes. It's just changed so quickly from
Car 3 is being shown a black and white flag for driving standards earlier in the race. Car 3, a black and white flag for an incident with Car 2.
So that was Mike Price in number 3 being shown the driving standards flag, deemed to be at fault for the contact between him and Chris Buncombe. You said he might not have seen the McLaren, and that's what race control would seem to echo.
Yeah, I'd say it's a racing incident, so they've obviously apportioned some blame more on Mike's side than Chris's, but I think that's fair for everyone. I don't think there'll be too many grumbles at all there, but yeah, let's see if we can get back to green, because I'm trying to look at who I think will be the biggest mover. I think we haven't seen much from Buncombe in clear air yet. P6, it'd be on the back of Rob Collard, which would then be on the back of this top 4, Balfe, Loggy, Ratcliffe and Martin. Martin's pace did seem super strong out of the box, but was that because maybe Barwell had gone higher on the pressures, turned the car on, which would then in turn make it go off quicker towards the end of the race. But that Lamborghini really has looked strong all weekend. I think it's been the car to be in.
This is the incident that we were talking about earlier on. Yeah, Mike Price sort of turned in, didn't he? I think you're right. He didn't really expect Chris Buncombe to be there. He turned in and all of a sudden, bang, Where did he come from?
Yeah, and you've got 100% mental capacity in conditions like this. That's all being used to stay on the track. And sometimes you're just not able to look in your mirror. As bizarre as that sounds, I can only liken it if you're in the car, kids screaming, something terrible on the radio, and you miss your junction. It's that sort of feeling. There's just not enough mental capacity to be able to take in all of this information at once. And the first thing that normally goes is checking your mirror, because that's in the past. Who cares about that? But it turns out Peter Daly does, and he's had a warning, which comes with no penalty.
Yeah.
But if he was to have another misdemeanor, he's already had his card marked.
So we have Andrew Howard with the fastest lap to his name, but he's down in 16th place overall. There is number 15 BMW John Ferguson now behind the wheel of it, and 7th spot is where he runs. We're still under this full course yellow period, and drivers, if and when that safety car comes out, will bunch them all up, and then they'll have a better chance at making progress because the gap disappears and some of the work is done for them. But the frustration for race control is they want to get the race back on the way, but if there's barrier damage, they can't do it yet. The barrier needs to be secure, and sadly, it's a regular occurrence when big cars hit barriers at Oulton Park. They seem to do quite a lot of damage to the supports behind them. So the Nearies in number 8, currently running in 9th place. They've gained 9 places within their class, having started 18th on the grid. And this is their race progression, which has been largely up. Bit of a drop down when they pitted, and then back up the order again.
Looks like it might be Richard Neary's heart rate, in all fairness. Quite chill at the start, and then starts to pace up as the stakes get a little higher. But yeah, really good run from them after a difficult qualifying and difficult race 1. Local guys here, super fast. Again, father and son team. I think they're going to have a couple of wins this year. I think they just get on top more and more. They swap from the previous generation Mercedes to this latest Evo one last year. Took a little while to get used to it, some big changes. Obviously not the biggest team in the paddock, so resources slightly different to some of the bigger teams, so it took a little bit longer than maybe they would have liked, but I think they're really in the sweet spot now.
We have on the timing screen a safety car message, which suggests not only are we about to get safety car conditions instigated, but we're therefore not that far off getting the race back underway. Now, the graphic there says full course yellow, but the timing screen is now showing safety car.
Yeah, exactly. So they can drop that 80 km/h limit and just start to bunch up behind the safety car. Good chance to get tyre temp, like I said about, but also get a feeling of what the car and the track is doing beneath them, and then they'll be able to go. We tend to see maybe a lap or two under safety car, so really hope we're not far away. Another race progression on there for the Fassetti number 7 car. You can see 27th overall, that's not in class, all the way up to 19th, so 8 places gained. Pit window, obviously lose a bit and then find your feet again. So they've had a really strong race as well. Just looking at these track vehicles, what are they doing? Obviously JCB's probably outshot to the left, just propping that barrier back up. You can see there with its backhoe, I believe it's called, just standing the barrier up, getting some new posts in potentially to make it strong, and then being all right. So hopefully they don't have to replace the posts. That's the problem. Like you said, these cars are so fast, but likewise relatively heavy for what Oulton Park was designed for back in the day. Now looking at 1,350 kilos, cars doing 160 miles an hour into turn 1. So much energy.
Now Ricky Collard's looking perplexed because the safety car message had come up on the timing screen and has now gone away. So we have number 77 that's come to a halt. So number 77, Morgan Tilbrook, has ground to a halt out by the side of the road, and lots of smoke coming out of the back of it.
Yeah, that looks hot, doesn't it? You can see the heat vapor coming out the back, which is relatively normal. The smoke, not though. The grille doesn't look full. Sometimes a car will go off, fill itself full of grass and overheat, but they've got the normal sort of rad blanking at the bottom. Team's always trying to keep the water temperature in a window, but that's only going to delay this, isn't it? Unfortunately, just under 12 minutes remaining. Hopefully we can get a snatch. So let's have a look. So the lights are flashing because he's on full course yellow. Don't worry about that. Can't see anything out the ordinary. Look at it, the radiator starting to go. My guess there would be something's gone through the radiator, a stone, a bolt, and it's then just started to go. The team will be seeing the water pressure dropping, water temperature rising, and that will just be turned off. There's no sort of safety measures, so the car won't have turned itself off like a road car or even some of the GT4s would, but I think the team have advised him, you need to knock that off, otherwise you're going to blow the motor, and when they're 40,000 pounds, it's quite an easy decision to make sometimes.
So down they come towards Lodge Corner. and the safety car information was a glitch in the system somehow, so we are still under full course yellow, not about to go safety car, and that's what was confusing people in all manner of roles within the championship, whether they were in the garages or up here or wherever, because the instruction hadn't come, but it was on the screen that the teams all look at. So we're still under the full course yellow procedure. The clock is ticking down. We're into the last 11 minutes. It's been a real frustration for the teams in both races. We've had these long yellow flag periods. Alex Martin, in a sense, cares not, because he's edging closer to a win here, despite having had to serve an extra 5 seconds in the pit lane. But we really want to see some good racing.
Yeah, exactly. And as the leader, when you do get a safety car or full course yellow, your emotions change. To start with, it's always a negative because you've lost the gap that you've earned, and it's unfair, as we are seeing a cleared space. It was actually Matt Topham in the Aston Martin. The driver ID hadn't changed. Right. He just coming out of the pits or just on his first flyer, so it wasn't Josh Rowledge, as the timing screen suggested. Matt's had a tough weekend, obviously having quite a big off in free practice, causing them to lose time, not getting out for qualifying. And when you start at the back of the grid, you just seem to have this magnet of bad luck. Are we going to be able to get a vehicle there? Yes, we are, thank you. And it's just where they're going to dump it. There's a bit of a space on the inside as they come around this kink before the first chicane. Hopefully they're just going to tow it there and get it done. We need to get to safety car. That's also what we need to be doing now. Get the safety car out, and then we can get going straight away. We're probably going to get, I hope we're going to get 2 laps. That's my prediction.
But the trouble is, yes, you need to move that car, but then you've got to get that recovery vehicle to a safer place. But there are little access roads on the outside of the Britain chicane. He doesn't need that off the track as quickly as, but Peter Daly will be, I can almost hear him now, sort of screaming at people, saying, how much longer? Come on, quick as you can, because he wants to get back racing. Everybody wants to go back racing, and that is the car that currently holds sway in GT4. Charles Dawson heading for his first win really at this level, which will be a great result, and illustrating Stuart Parker's correct choice to go to Mercedes AMG for this season.
Yeah, the GT4 car's been strong for quite a few years. Team Parker, obviously, we really associate with Porsche, and they've tried Porsche. They were with McLaren last year, and obviously the drivers have really said we want to try this Mercedes. They've seen how strong it can be, especially in European GT4. Absolutely. It's been really, really good there, and at the moment they look like geniuses with their decision. You can see the Audi GT3 in front, the driver Sasha Kakin there. I think just going to get a bit of air. You can see his gloves moving around. They'll be asking the teams what's going on, how long left, why is the safety car not out? So yeah, I think if we go back to green, it's going to be lively, because there's no way they're going to get these tyres back up. We've been under full course yellow for so long now, it's going to be really, really difficult to get them back in the window.
And if you're wondering why they can't go safety car yet, it's because you've still got, as that's Seb Morris looking confident from GT4, you've still got marshals working and recovery vehicles on track, and the safety car speed is quicker than a full course yellow speed, so it wouldn't really be safe to have the cars going faster still with people working trackside.
Yeah, I hate health and safety, but it is the right call there, and they've got to get that car out of the way fully. They can't just push it to one side. It's just too tight round here, Oulton Park. It has to be behind a barrier, and like you said, then that recovery vehicle, the JCB in that instance, has to get out of the way, and hopefully they can just get it to dive out of that position.
And the team's saying to race control, we will need a safety car, we will need a lap or two to get the warmth into the tyres, because the temperature has disappeared. Yes, it might be a warmer day now than it was, but in terms of tyre temperature, that's just gone through the floor.
Yeah, definitely, and you're just not generating any load in the tyre whatsoever. 80 kilometres an hour might feel fast in a road car at times driving through a town, but at this speed the cars are so not under load. They would be generating 5% of the energy they're creating normally under a flat out lap, so it's going to be difficult for them to do. Just going on board with Martin now, just trying to see if he's working the tyres at all or if he's just staying straight. The other sort of oddity is under full course yellow, you use about a quarter of the fuel you usually do under green, and you just can't burn it off. The car is still there. They've looked like they were going to pick it up from the rear, and then they've gone to the front. Hopefully they're just going to drag it. Yes, the engine's hot. It should still roll. We pull it to neutral. At this moment, I don't care. Leave it in gear, just drag it. Yeah. And we need to get a race underway here.
So the cars now making their way over Hilltop down towards Hislop, and the McLaren being a problem to move. Safety car is on track, ready for its commencement of process, if you like, when we go to safety car procedure, but we're not there yet. We can't be if this car is still stranded on the road.
Yeah, and the safety car's just getting into position, so when it can be ready, there's no time wasted whatsoever. So we're doing everything we can to get back to green here. It is just that clock is ticking away ever so fast, really. It's hopefully we've got a minute or two extra than it's looking like we do at the moment.
Well, Seb Morris looks like he's heading for a GT4 win. He was pretty chipper earlier on in the day, and a race win would make him even happier. Seb is with Bryn.
Well, Seb, you sat on the grid, you're getting composed, the track was drying, and this is what's happened. It's not gone quite the way we want from a viewer point of view, but you're out there looking very hot for a decent win.
Yeah, hopefully so. I just tried my best to get my head down and pull a gap to Zach, which I did very successfully, and then I saw this Aston Martin coming out of absolutely nowhere, herring towards me. So I didn't put up much of a fight. He's technically not in the same class. He's fighting for silver, we're Pro-Am. So let him go, followed him, and then managed to build up a big gap. And by the time Charles came out, we were about 11 seconds ahead. So Charles would have been in for a nice, chilled out Sunday afternoon drive. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
Going into a championship like this, I mean, I'm sure that the overall prize is overall champion, but would you take class champion?
Yeah, we'd absolutely take class champion. I mean, we came here hoping for 2 top 6s, and we've exceeded that. So we're just debating now how hard we make Charles push for the probably most intense 5 minutes of his entire life.
Do you put it down to great team performance this weekend, or luck of the draw, the way the chips have fallen?
I put it down to great team performance, and I've worked hard with Charles. He did the Winter Series, and I was there on the sidelines coaching him, brought him on, and he's just come on so tremendously as a driver over the past 3 months. It's exceptional how far he's come on, so we're reaping the results now, or the reward.
Well, go and watch it for the last few minutes. Well done.
Thank you.
So, frustratingly, here at Oulton Park, we are still under full course yellow conditions, and will remain so until that McLaren is off the circuit. Again, it's just one of those situations that a race director hates. You have to neutralise the race for one issue with cars in a dangerous place, and then something else happens, and the McLaren is proving difficult to move, we understand. So although it's being pushed out of harm's way now, harm's way is a little bit further up the road, so it's a real question as to whether we're going to get a racing lap in or not. So big frustration for everybody, because these cars around here always look mega. Last year we had some great racing. Well, there is the lead car. Where is the McLaren? He's gone through the part of the road where you would have anticipated to see it. There it is. It's almost out of harm's way. But of course then you've got to get the car behind the barrier, you've got to get the vehicle off the track, and on it goes.
I'm not sad, I'm angry. We've been robbed of a really good end of a race here, I think, unfortunately, and it is just how the cookie crumbles sometimes, but yeah, unfortunately it's just the way it's gone. I can't really see who's going to be the most annoyed. I do still think Bunkum was on for a good one if it hadn't gone safety car at all. He was the man putting purple sectors in. They gambled first to go to slicks, and I think they would have been paid off. 6 at the moment, would they have been on the podium? I think it was pretty close call if they could have done that, but yeah, you can see these cars just so dirty, how quickly this track has changed from a lot of spray less than an hour ago to full dry conditions.
Safety car procedure, please speed up and catch the safety car.
So we're going to get a lap, I suspect, aren't we, behind the safety car? It'll be one racing lap, which...
Car 67, please let 32 by. Car 32 overtakes 67 under safety car.
And that was because they had traded order when they shouldn't have done, when the safety car, when the full course yellow was called for. So Peter Daly is restoring the order between Simon Orange in 67 and Sasha Kakad in number 32, McLaren and Audi. So the instruction has been speed up, catch the safety car. And the safety car with its lights on is coming out of dear lead. But look, these are big gaps. And actually, well, it's going to take more than 2 minutes, I would have thought, for the field to concertina. So they'll just possibly get a lap in, but I'm not convinced.
We need some IT nerd to hack in and just add a minute to the race time.
Yeah.
I can try and help anyone if they need any details, but I just don't think that safety car is going to get round in under 2 minutes.
No, I don't.
Anyway, even if it had a strung out field, sort of Abu Dhabi F1 ala, but I can't see it, unfortunately. They've done everything they can. I know how hard they work in race control, and they've got to use safety as their main priority. I just hope we can just get across the line for one lap.
Now, however quick Lorna Vickers goes, let's say that the safety car is in before the hour is up. If Alex Martin lags back and falls away and goes slowly, he might be the wrong side of the hour. So there's no guarantee that even if the safety car peels in, he'll be in time for a green flag.
Are you the Grinch? Trying to take away my fun. But yeah, that would be the smart move. So on board here, we're on board with Ferguson. Look at the rear moving around. Goes in
deep. Safety car
deep.
lights will be extinguished at turn 13.
So safety car lights are out. Will they be able to get back to the pits? Wow, look at it jumping over the grass there. Bit of damage on the front right as well, maybe from one of the tyre stacks. So are we going to get a lap?
And that's, of course, the illustration as to why you want the safety car to increase the pace, increase the tyre temperature, increase the grip, increase the safety. And we have got 36 seconds and counting on the clock, and we want a racing lap, and I can't see it coming. Although the lights will go out at turn 13, I don't think that car is going to get across the timing line in 30... No, make that 23 seconds now. We're done. We've got an order. So we've tried hard in race control, but the clock's going to beat us, and so they will come across the line to take the checkered flag, not a green.
Yeah, green-white checker, isn't it, in the States, I think. But, yeah, safety car lights are off, but there's no chance we're getting round here. We're going to be about 30 seconds short, I think, of a very spectacular flying lap of Oulton Park with all of these cars. So I think there'll be a lot of actually disheartened drivers. You get so pumped up adrenaline-wise to go, and then you're going to have a bit of a flat crescendo. But great restart from Martin to take the checkered flag.
Well, absolutely. And, of course, if anybody makes a mistake and goes off at Lodge Corner, that would change the order. Alex Martin does not want to do that, and he is safe up Deer Leap. So it's going to be a double for Barwell, because Sandy Mitchell and Alex Martin are going to win at Oulton Park. Checkered flag is waved. Mark Radcliffe and Tom Gamble come home in second. And now there is delight at Barwell. A win in both races and a win for each car. So that's rather shares it amongst them, doesn't it? Ian Logie and Phil Keane third, Sean Balfe and Adam Smalley fourth, the Collards fifth, the Buncombe sixth, Ferguson and Marcello take seventh, and delight for Stuart Parker and Seb Morris. They've won GT4. And big frustration that so much of that race had to be under yellow. But you know, if barriers are damaged, if cars are in dangerous places, what can you do? It's just a shame that it always seems to take so long at Oulton Park, more than anywhere else, to get things sorted out, whether it's the nature of the track or the... I don't know, but it's the same at touring car meetings. Everything seems to take a long time here.
You go and get your hammer out then if it's so easy. But yeah, it's so hard, and I just put it down to the cars being so fast and so heavy. The barrier isn't just damaged for one section, it'll be 3 or 4 different posts that are damaged by the time you get the recovery trucks there. Maybe we just need faster JCBs. That was the problem, because he had to do a whole lap at 5 minutes. If we put a bigger V8 in that, then we've got a chance. But some really good performances in that first stint. Let's not forget that element of it. Seb Morris really anchoring the win for the 31 GT4 winner there, and I think, like I said, they're going to be really strong this year, being a pro-am lineup.
So it is a double for Barwell. Great start to the championship campaign, and Alex Martin, a really good debut in British GT, taking a third and a race win in the Dextra Lighting backed car, which will be now sent to Paul Ricard, where Barwell in under a week's time will be on track for GT World Challenge Europe's opening races in the Endurance Cup at the French circuit. Fastest lap to Andrew Howard. That's the one consolation for the Aston Martin GT3 teams, who had a pretty tough day. GT4 Astons going very nicely, but in GT3 it was pretty tough. So there is Alex Martin bringing the number 78 Barwell car back to the pit lane. The next round in the championship is going to be completely different. The wide open spaces of Silverstone and a 3-hour proper endurance race. It's always a real highlight of the season, and it'll be a very different type of race, no doubt. I know that weather rather affected Silverstone last year, certainly in qualifying, but it's a very different type of race that we can look forward to at the end of April 27-28 weekend. So let's have a look at the results then of a rather frustrating race. Alex Martin and Sandy Mitchell taking the win from Mark Radcliffe and Tom Gamble. Ian Logie and Phil Keane finishing third. Fourth, Adam Smalley and Sean Balfe, with the top 6 rounded out by the Collards. And the Buncombe, 7th to Raffaele Marcello and John Ferguson. The Nearys were 8th, Mike Price and Callum McLeod 9th. Kevin Say and Maxi Goetz finishing in 10th spot. In GT4, it was a win for Charles Dawson and Seb Morris for Team Parker Racing, ahead of Mark Warren and Will Oulton, and then Mikey Porter and Jamie Day, winners of race 1, third in race 2. Fourth in GT4, Zach Meakin and Jack Brown, ahead of Luca Hopkinson and Harry George, and then Marcus Signoretti and Eric Evans next in the surviving Academy Motorsport Ford Mustang. So a lot of teams probably with a hard luck story. You know, had we been able to go green, we could have done X, Y, or Z. But ultimately, that Barwell Lamborghini looking strong all the way through. Sandy Mitchell doing the first stint. Alex Martin bringing it home with very few racing laps that he had to worry about, but he did have to make sure he put a wheel wrong on that track surface that was still a little bit iffy when he went on to the slicks. But Sandy Mitchell is delighted, and Alex Martin, I can't think, with all due respect to him, that he's had that many outright race wins in his career. So well done to Alex Martin. And Bryn Lucas is down there to join in the celebrations. Bryn.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dave. First of all, we're going to come to Sandy while Alex gets himself sorted. That was it was a race at, say it's an easy race to look from the outside. You had to get through the first part, didn't you, Sandy?
Yeah, the difficult bit was you know, building up a gap at the start, because, you know, we had the 5 seconds extra in the pit lane, whereas the guys in the McLaren didn't have any success penalty. So yeah, the key for us was to try and pull away, and we absolutely nailed the tyre pressures. So I was kind of struggling a little bit at the start. Tom was really on me while it was quite wet, and then it just dried out so quickly, and we were just away after that.
For yourself, Alex, well, bring the car home. That's what you got to do. It's not a bad first weekend of the season, is it?
Get the lead. I'll take it any way it comes, and yeah, like with all overtakes, it takes 2 people, and you know, Mark was fair and left me just enough space to squeeze through, which is cool. But the car ran great all weekend. Barwell done a great job. I'll take it any way it comes.
He's done pretty well today, hasn't he? And in fact, all weekend, Sandy. We said just at the start of the race that this place has eaten your championships up before, where you leave Oulton Park in a very, very strong position.
Yeah, definitely. I'm guessing, if my maths is right, we'll be leading, but it's pretty close. I mean, you know, the Merc here's had a good first round as well. So yeah, it's going to be close all the way through the year, but we're ready to fight for it.
You can go and celebrate now. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, of course, on the back of that is a much longer pit stop compensation time for Silverstone, because with it being a long race, 3-hour race, the pit stop compensation time goes up accordingly. So a win here, yes, but they'll have to serve a longer stop by that race win, and incrementally longer for 3-hour race at Silverstone. So you win some and you lose some. Well, in GT3, it's a Lamborghini double. What about GT4? Well, Mercedes coming out on top. We'd heard already from Seb Morris, a very happy Charles Dawson coming into British GT, and his relationship with Team Parker Racing is started with a victory here in race 2 at Oulton Park. Charles Dawson and Seb Morris win GT4.
Well, we spoke to you, Seb, not that long ago, so I'm going to come to Charles first of all. You had to bring the car home. Before we get to this, you know, let's just reflect on your last 12 months, because you had a pretty nasty accident in April last year, fractured your back, and you've come back and you've won here at Oulton Park.
Yeah, it was last April in Monza in testing for GT4 Europe, and it was first year in GT4 cars, and took a little bit of work last year to get back to fitness, and obviously met Seb last year in GT Cup, and here we are. So yeah, we worked hard over the winter. We had good opportunities to do some racing. So yeah, I think it's, you know, obviously luck was on our side there with the long full course yellow, but we'll take it, and you've got to take the rough of the smooth. So.
Well, Seb, you know what it's like to win championships, GT3. Now, coming out of here at Oulton Park, you must be happy with the points haul and the way it's all gone.
Yeah, very happy. I can't say I'm not happy about that result, because I did work extremely hard to build that gap for Charles. I think you would have had 11 seconds. So as I said, hopefully Charles was in for a nice smooth stint, but he ended up getting that anyway, but in a very different way.
It was a very, very good weekend. Well done, both of you.
Thank you.
So well done, Charles Dawson and Seb Morris as the winners of GT4. And the teams, as I say, will move next to Silverstone for 3 hours of action on a very different sort of circuit. Oulton Park in the sunshine at the end of the race, looking completely different from how it was at the start. But a real frustration that we got in so few racing laps. And just when we were almost ready to go, then that McLaren coming to a halt, which was yet a further delay and a further frustration. So a Lamborghini win from McLaren, from Mercedes, from McLaren, from Lamborghini, from McLaren in the top 6. Let's have a look then at the best bits of race 2 here at Oulton Park. It all began from a proper rolling start on a damp but drying circuit. the pro drivers going first and having to be mindful of track conditions, and it all got dramatic at Old Hall Corner on that first lap. There was a little bit of a contact that turned around Charlie Robertson's GT4 BMW, and as he spun across the road, others had to try to take evasive action. Some were able to, others were less fortunate, and as some swerved to avoid, triggered their own incidents, and we lost 3 cars in that clash alone. So straight away the safety car was deployed, and when we went racing, Sandy Mitchell, having had to lose the gap that he built over the traffic, set off about building it again, as Raffaele Marcello was on his toes working his way past Marcus Classen. Good battle between BMW and McLaren. Through the traffic came Sandy Mitchell, and as the road dried, the pro drivers stayed out for as long as possible before they came in for the mandatory pit stop and a tyre change. Drama to the 87 Johnny Adam Mercedes, bit of contact turning him around, but he pitted straight afterwards. And as the battles continued, we were sadly going to lose Morgan Tilbrook's McLaren, because that, with steam and smoke coming out of the radiator, ground to a halt on the side of the circuit. By the time that had been moved, it was too late really to go back racing, and so Alex Martin and Sandy Mitchell took a relatively easy win in race 2 of British GT Championship 2024 here at Oulton Park. Charles Dawson and Seb Morris doing the same in GT4. From Bryn Lucas, Joe Osborne and David Anderson at Oulton Park. Thanks for your company. It's goodbye from Cheshire.